First up are these L128 Blue Phantom Plecos. I was able to pick up 6 of these fish, but unfortunately did lose one of them. Right now, these guys are in a 55-gallon tank with my Limia perugiae and Praecox rainbow fish. These beautiful plecos come from the Rio Orinoco, with the most blue specimens coming from the northern part of the river where they live in fast-moving currents. In the aquarium, these fish will settle into a less turbid environment. If you head further south down this river system, you'll run into the L200 or green phantom pleco, which is closely related. One of the keys to keeping this species, as well as many other species of plecos, is to provide smooth rocks and plenty of hiding spaces. These fish are omnivorous and will eat a wide variety of food. This tank has plenty of driftwood and hiding places, so that shouldn't be a problem. These fish are a couple inches long right now, but will get to about 7 inches. My plan right now is to grow them up in this 55-gallon and eventually move them into one of the bigger tanks here in the fish tank barn. I was only able to find one record of these having been bred in captivity, so it would definitely be a challenging breeding project, but we'll see what we can do. So let's go ahead here and take a look at this 75-gallon tank. This tank used to have the Pseudotropheus interruptus chismulu, which I did end up moving to a tank upstairs. But I've now re-aquascaped this tank and added some new fish to it. The first inhabitant is this beautiful gold nugget pleco, or L177. These fish have been pretty reclusive here in the fish tank barn. These fish come from the Rio Xingu in Brazil. There are 4 species that have the name gold nugget pleco: the L18, the L81, the L85, and the L177, with the difference being in the spotting and the yellow stripe on the fins. These fish will get pretty large at 9 inches long. Like all plecos, they will need plenty of hiding spaces and the proper tank space, since they are aggressive towards other plecos. They are fine as tank mates with peaceful and semi-aggressive fish. These fish will eat algae, vegetables like cucumber and zucchini, and also proteins like bloodworms or brine shrimp. I did pick up 3 of these guys, and they are about 4 inches long. These would definitely be challenging fish to breed, since they've only been done twice in captivity. I also added to this tank a group of Melanotaenia Nigrans that I got in from Dan's Fish. This fish is found in a wide variety of different environments in the northern part of Australia. Because of this fish can handle a wide range of temperature and pH from 66 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit and a pH of 5 to 8.1. This is truly a great beginner fish, and I'm really looking forward to this fish growing up and getting some fry out of these fish as well. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this 75-gallon tank, which is upstairs. It still has some tannins in it, but it's getting better. This tank was the home to the Melanotaenia species Kali timbuni, who have since moved downstairs. But now, this tank is home to a couple of cool new species for the fish tank barn. We did add some more pleco species to this tank as well. The very beautiful and wonderful L134 leopard frog pleco. These beautiful fish come from the various rivers in Brazil, with the largest populations found in the Rio Zamaxim and Rio Tapajos rivers. These fish are pretty easy to care for beginners, being omnivorous but having a tendency towards meaty foods. These fish are smaller than the species we described earlier, only getting to be about 4.5 inches. In looking at the breeding reports on these fish, there are definitely a larger number than the 2 species we spoke of earlier. I've also added some Rhadinocentrus ornatus from Carlin Creek, also from Dan. These fish are native to southern Queensland and northern New South Wales in Australia. These fish get about 2 to 3 inches long and come from a wide variety of temperature ranges. In the wild, they're found from anywhere from 54 degrees to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The streams and swampy areas where they live in the wild often yield a pretty low pH, which is from 3.9 to 6.8, but however, they'll do fine in normal aquarium conditions. I figured that this tank would be a good fit for this fish, given the tannins, which would create a pH lower than the normal 8.0 pH that we have here in the fish tank barn. I am pretty excited to be able to work with this species, and once we get them grown out a little bit, we'll be really working to get some fry from these fish as well. I did add some more Melanotaenia species Wallace Road, which I also got from Dan. These undefined species hail from Queensland and Australia and stay small, only reaching about 3.5 inches. Since these guys are so new to the fish room, they're not colored up at the moment, but I am pretty excited to have more of these fish in the fish room and to see them grow up and color out. So let's talk about the new plants. After I did my tour with the members of the KG Tropicals channel for their members only stream, I really started to get into the plants here in the fish room. Sometimes it takes someone else's comments for you to recognize something that's being successful in your own fish room. So I've decided to branch out a little bit from the normal Vallisneria, Crypts, and Pogostem and Salatus octopus that currently occupy the fish barn. One of my motivating factors is playing around with this Rotala indica that I've had here for some time in the fish room. These two factors have really led me to branch out a little bit. So taking a recommendation I heard on the Corvus Oskin channel, I ordered some plants from Liquid Creations. So I'm not running CO2 here in the fish barn, so I chose some easy to medium light plants to work with. Some of these plants may not be in their final positions as I put them in their own individual tanks to see how well they work with my water and tank parameters. So let's go ahead and take a look at these plants. So let's go ahead and start out looking at this Rotala species Atra. This plant is related to the Rotala rondifolia and is a pretty good growing low-tech plant. I really enjoy the orange-reddish look on this plant and I'm pretty excited to use this as an accent plant on a lot of the aquascapes here in the fish tank barn. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the Hygrophila Pinnatafida. This is a large plant that puts off runners which turn into new plants, much like the Vallisneria that I currently grow in the fish room. I am currently growing this plant out in a 20-gallon tank and definitely looking forward to including this plant and its siblings in many of the other places here in the fish barn. So this plant is turning into one of my favorites here in the fish room. This Rotala Walichii is turning into one of my favorites here in the fish room. I'm really digging its red coloration. This is another plant which may not be living in its forever home, but this mid-ground to background plant is going to make a great contrast to a lot of the other green plants that are currently in the fish barn. This Ludwigia species Atlantis is another great red to orange plant. This plant has some pretty thick stems, so I've actually gone ahead and placed the plants in various spots around the fish barn, seeing how it will grow. Another one I'm pretty excited about. We also picked up a couple of Java fern type species. The first one here is this Microsorum Terapus philippine, which is a rare type of Java fern, but it will just grow like any of your other Java ferns. Just go ahead and putting it onto stones and leaves with either glue or tying it on. I'm truly excited to have these wonderful new fish and plants here in the fish tank barn. I really look forward to growing both of these out, breeding them or propagating them, and getting them out to more of my fellow fish keepers.